like what you're hearing right now? Then be sure to check out VOC Nation. Whether it's on VOCNation.com or your favorite podcast provider, VOC Nation offers the greatest in live and on-demand content, great interviews, and incredible insight from those who have lived the business 7 days a week. VOCNation.com, and don't forget to check us out on Twitter at VOC Nation.
Hey, this is Total Package Lex Luger, and you're listening to the VOC Nation. Don't miss out.
VOC Nation's own Stro Maestro suffered a major medical and financial catastrophe this year. From the VOC Nation family, to all of you, please continue to pray for Stro Maestro for his continued recovery. You can also donate to his cause, paypal.me/PapaStro.
The worldwide leader in entertainment. This is the VOC Nation Radio Network.
Check out In the Room
every Tuesday night at 9. Listen in.
Pro Wrestling Illustrated's Brady Hicks, former WCW star Stro Maestro, Kathy Fitz, Matt Grimm.
And you and Ray are there too, right, Ray?
We sure are, and we've got great guests like Lex Luger, AJ Styles, Kaku, and more. It's a heck of a party. Plus,
I didn't get thrown off buildings.
And then when you pregnant.
I didn't get pregnant either.
Sometimes I think it gets so ridiculous.
We were getting into like snuff film territory there.
In the Room.
9 p.m. Eastern on VOC Nation.
Yo, this is Jerry Stein of the Nasty Boys. Yeah, Brian Knobs here. You getting ready to get nasty? Well, listen to the VOC Nation, baby.
VOC Nation is one of the longest-running wrestling podcast networks, having started way back in 2010. VOC Nation provides daily streaming shows where fans have the ability to interact with their hosts and guests via phone calls, emails, and Twitter. VOC Nation hosts will include former backstage interviewer from both AWA and WWE, Ken Resnick, former WCW performer The Maestro, former Impact performer Wes Briscoe, Pro Wrestling Illustrated contributor Brady Hicks, and former Philadelphia radio personality Bruce Wirtz. Archive-free content includes past interviews with huge names like Hulk Hogan, Jesse Ventura, Kurt Angle, Jimmy Hart, Ricky Steamboat, Sting, Mick Foley, Joey Styles, Howard Finkel, and so many more. Listen live at VOCNation.com and subscribe to all the podcasts by searching VOC Nation Radio Network on your favorite podcast app. And be sure to follow these guys on Twitter at VOC Nation.
Bill Apter has been in the pro wrestling business for over 50 years.
Hey, talking here with Arn Anderson. Arn, first of all, your height and weight.
6'1", 255.
And now subscribers to VOC Nation Premium get exclusive access to Bill Apter's archived audio footage.
And where's your hometown?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay, and give us something about your back. First of all, your relationship to Ole Anderson.
Ole is my...
Subscription to VOC Nation Premium starts at just $3 a month and includes commercial-free audio and video versions of our top podcasts.
Okay, we're speaking here with the manager of the World Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, Tarzan Tyler and Luke Graham, and he's sort of glowing tonight about a new prospect we haven't heard of yet.
And for just $9 a month, Apter's archives are all yours.
Would you tell us who this new prospect is?
Well, I'll tell you, Bill, I've searched the world, and I finally found a true world champion. I finally found...
What's your opinion of Ivan Koloff winning the title from Bruno Sammartino?
Well, I think, I don't know what to say, but I want to say one thing. Bruno was a hell of a champion. You know?
Hear exclusive interviews with the greatest performers of all time.
This is Bill Apter, and once again, we're speaking here with Bruno Sammartino. Bruno, first of all, how did you and Bruiser lose that title to the Valiant?
Well, actually, it was a very unusual loss, if you want to call it a loss.
Did Heenan have anything to do?
Well, yes, but the whole thing is that the rules, as I always understood them, was that the title could only be lost by pin or submission, which is the same rules as my title, the World Wide Wrestling Federation. That night, it was...
To sign up, it's very simple. Head to premium.vocnation.com or go to patreon.com/VOCNation. VOC Nation takes you behind the scenes of the greatest moments in pro wrestling history.
Each and every Thursday night, check it out. WCW star Stro Maestro takes you on a journey. It's WCW Retro, talking old school match of the the week talking dream matches, taking your calls, and looking back on an incredible career of acting, entertaining, and wrestling. Check it out, VOCNation.com, WCW Retro. Be sure to call in Thursday nights, 9 Eastern, on the VOC Nation Radio Network.
This is Matt Hardy, and you are listening to the VOC Nation.
Welcome back. Your dreams were your ticket out. Welcome back to that same old place that you laughed about. Well, the names have all changed since you hung around, but those dreams have remained and they've turned around. Who'd have thought they'd lead ya? Who'd have thought they'd lead ya? Back here where we need ya. We got him on the spot. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Well, good evening, everybody, and definitely welcome back to WCW Retro here on the first Thursday of the brand new year. Hope everybody had a great holiday and whatever you celebrate, and a great new year. Joining us tonight is always my buddy, my friend, Ryan Slim Burgundy Deasy. Brother, how you doing, man? How was your holiday time?
It was good, Howard. How about yourself?
It's good. It was quiet. It was nice and quiet. So
excellent. Happy New Year to yourself and to everybody out there. First one of the new year, first WCW Retro, always a fun time. Got to tell Brady though, he needs to update those commercials. I did not hear Slim Burgundy's name in there.
I know my name's missing out of there. Like, yeah, we got to get on upper.
We know Kathy absolutely, is better be in there. I mean, she's an institution.
Absolutely.
She is what makes this wrestling world go round. But
yeah, and honestly, we can't do
slobs like us. Then you're in
right. Right. At least just an honorable mention every once in a while or something. A soundbite, something.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, call us the Stooges to Brady's Vince McMahon.
Right. Listen, we've been called worse in our lives, so
it's true. Do you who gets to be Pat Patterson and who gets to be Gerald Briscoe? That's the only. Which one of us takes which?
I think that's a toss up, but with either one of those guys' career, I'd want to be either one of them.
Exactly, yeah. And God knows they probably both made themselves a healthy living for their families.
Oh, absolutely. And absolute legends in the business. Love both those guys.
Well, within reason, even though there's been some accusations against.
Yeah.
But.
But let's. I was kicking around the idea earlier as I was driving home. A little bit of fantasy. Hold on, I got. Rapboy asking if there's a show. I'm like, we're on now. Like,
see, that's the problem right there. Well, for one, he doesn't know because you set it to play on stations that he doesn't, that he can't get,
Right, and I get it. He's only limited so much in his technology. But anyway,
he only has only so much cheese he can.
Right.
He can handle.
Only so much cheese he can muster.
Exactly.
But I want to live in a little bit of a fantasy world here, just kind of, and bear with me. Maybe it's a silly idea, but listen, we're all about silly and different ideas here. But let's pretend that 2024, is either ancient history, never happened, or whatever, and we have two brand new, I'll call them territories because that's how old I am. Territories starting, one run by Triple H and one run by Tony Khan. That is, the WWE
better
and
Khan.
AEW.
The two of them. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yes.
And that's not a shot at WWE. I enjoy WWE product too.
Not at all.
I don't think Nick Khan is a wrestling guy. He's a numbers guy. And I guess technically Tony Khan is still a work in progress for sure. But to be fair, I have to say I'm still finishing up World's End, but
okay,
solid event.
It was, and I watched most of it.
I have to say, Mercedes
I liked it.
and Mercedes and Stat, man, that was a really good match. Kyle Fletcher and friggin' Will Ospreay, holy shit, that was just phenomenal.
The whole card was, I think, top to bottom was a solid card.
Oh, without a doubt. And I know some people are going to complain, oh, it wasn't that good of wrestling, or they didn't tell us, especially like the Hobbs. I thought the Hobbs match with Takeshita was very well done because that was a little more of a WWE style to it, I felt like. Tell a little more story versus just more straight up wrestling. And of course, I'm sure people are going to go, oh, there's no storytelling. But, I don't understand, that makes no sense to me to say there's no storytelling because Hobbs, being a former member of Callis' family, I thought they told a great thing where Callis goes, oh, you're hurt. Why should I bother wasting my time with you? Like, I think it just really helped continue to reinforce the fact that he is a, sleazy, disgusting, person.
Right.
So let me ask you this real quick, and I know you want to kind of go with your scenario, but do you think who do you think is the biggest heel draw for AEW? Is it Callis? I mean, at least crowd reaction wise, I definitely would say.
Yeah, I think based
him and then MJF are probably the top two.
And I don't even want to go 1 and 2. I think it's like 1A, 1A minus almost. They're right there. I think Callis is,
he feels a little bit like their version of Dominic Mysterio when it comes to crowd reactions.
Yes, and I think he edges them out just a little bit, but it's not much. I mean, and both of them are very hateable characters, very hateable people.
And then throw MJF in there. Here's another one.
That's what I mean.
They just want to punch him in the face.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Ludwig Kaiser. He's just got a face you want to punch.
Yeah, I agree with that. He's kind of an American version of Ludwig Kaiser.
Yes, but I think he's far better on the mic, and even I think
he's better in the ring too. But that's not a shot at Kaiser. I think Kaiser.
No.
I think he'd be better because you could tell it's not English isn't his native tongue. I think if it was his native tongue, he'd be much better. Or if we were in his native tongue, if he was going and doing that, that'd be a different story.
Right.
But as far as him in the ring, make no mistake about it, he is. He is talented in the ring.
Absolutely. But I think Callis edges MJF out for heel of the year, if you will. If they even still do that, in modern day wrestling, I'll call it. But let's wipe the slate clean. 2024. Let's just for a second pretend 2024 didn't happen, and we have two. I'll call them upstarts, two territories that are starting. Who do you give the edge to going into 2025 with? Forget that, the WWE is a juggernaut that they're probably always going to be. But where do you see, this winding up? Now we're fast forwarding. It's the first retro of 2026, and we're analyzing, who comes out on top this year, as far as AEW or WWF, WWE, whatever they are.
I'm going to ask you to kind of repeat the question. I apologize, but the pup was all of a sudden limping, and I'm freaking out trying to figure out why.
Oh, all right. So we're wiping the slate clean.
Okay, fresh start. 2024 didn't happen.
These two companies just started yesterday, January 1st, right?
Okay.
Who do you see coming out on top? If this was a ratings war back like it was with the old Monday Night Wars, yes. Who do you see coming out on top at the end of 2025 once all the dust settles? Who do you see on top? And then who is leading the company, at the end of the year?
Well, the sad truth is of the who's on top, it's still going to be WWE. Only because of the fact that it's a little more geared towards children, towards the quote-unquote casual.
Right.
So I think that gives them an advantage. Now, that being said, does not mean that doesn't mean that. Now, of course, I lost my thought. Oh, yeah. Doesn't mean that AEW wouldn't do well. I think AEW would do solid, but I still think the advantage would still go a little bit to WWE. Now, granted, it's not like, like it is today where WWE is a company that's been around for like 80 years versus 5 years of 5 years of AEW.
Right. Yeah,
I think ultimately because of the fact that they are, like I said, more towards WWE's more towards the, I don't know if there necessarily is a quote unquote casual fan anymore, but I guess whatever you want to consider to be kind of like the casual, since that's their, that's their bread and butter, I guess. I'm trying to think how we want to phrase some of that stuff.
No, I do see, I think, given, WWE's history and longevity, obviously, I think they get the edge, but I feel like this year, especially, I think AEW kind of closes the gap a little bit and gets more into that, 1A, category, or at least improve, and again, improving on number 2, is that even a thing? But I do think that, excuse me, that AEW does close the gap, and I think starts to get a little more credibility, from where they are.
I think AEW absolutely, by the end of 2025, even with the histories and stuff, I think the streaming aspect's going to be a very beneficial thing for them.
Absolutely.
Because two reasons. One, obviously the live show being able to be streamed for those who've quote unquote cut the cord. And I also think that having their library of kind of popping up on there, and eventually, hopefully, their full library will be on there. I think that gives a positive aspect for them, because there are people who will go, oh, I have Max. Oh, I can watch some wrestling. Oh, I can watch, and I can learn a little bit about the history of this company. I think that'll help for sure. Now, again, the reality is WWE will be the king at the end of the day. And that's okay. I don't understand this. And again, I know I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it another billion times before, they as Paul Heyman once said, until the network throws us off the air. But the IWC is so friggin' toxic. They're so friggin' toxic. And it's so aggravating, because why can't you just be happy for what the company's, for what each is doing? And to say that they're not having success just shows that they don't understand how things are. Yes, they do. Does AEW need to do better with their ratings and their storytelling, all that kind of stuff? Yes, of course. I'm not saying that they don't. What I am saying, though, is that to act like it's this dying company or dead company or something just shows that people don't understand what, in the year 2025, what the cable companies and stuff, what the TV conglomerates are looking for.
Right. No, and again, I don't think there's anything AEW is doing wrong. And it does kind of go back to, the old territory days. You had people like us that grew up kind of in the Northeast, until cable came along, we didn't know anything except WWE, WWF at the time. At least I didn't. And then, cable kind of comes along and you get introduced to these, what we considered newer, promotions. Well, the NWA, when Jim Crockett was running under that banner, was around much longer than the WWF was. And people forget the WWF as its entity isn't that old. 83, 84-ish, technically, I think Vince took over. And it really started to, to expand nationally so that, they're not that old at, as an organization. Now, I mean, their lineage goes back much further with his father and all of that. And I get that.
Yeah, but they're still a lot older than AEW. AEW,
yes,
they had about 35 years on AEW.
Yes, they do.
If you want to look at it from that perspective of when Vince took over.
Right. And when you look at, and that's what I love about Peacock, I go back and, I can watch like the old, like going to the first WrestleMania, looking at that to where it's come now. You can see the production, has changed, and the presentation has, kind of morphed into what it is now, which I think every organization has to go through. You can't just start up, and be the Ferrari. I mean, you gotta start out smaller, and you gotta crawl before you can walk, and then walk before you run. And I think AEW is starting to walk and learning how to run a little bit. And I think in the next 5 or 6 years, I think they will be more of a contender. They're certainly not going anywhere.
I was going to say, I don't want them necessarily to be a quote-unquote contender. As weird as that sounds, I want them to just focus on themselves. I don't want them to worry about WWE. Heck, I don't even want them to worry about a TNA or worry about a MLW or a New Japan or any of that kind of stuff. Just focus on you. Don't worry about other companies. Focus on your product and making the best possible product you can. That's all I want them to worry about. That's where I want their focus to be. And that's not a bad thing to anybody else either. I'm not saying anything negative about anybody. I want each company to do that, where they're focusing on being their best possible selves so we can enjoy the best wrestling possible.
Right. And I want the excitement back that we had even before, the whole Monday Night Wars, and all of that, started. There was an excitement to watch, wrestling and make sure that I would, was home at a particular time because I knew, whatever show was coming on and I wanted to watch it. And be able to be, invested in it. And, AEW is drawing me in a little bit more and more. Every time I watch it, I find something new, that I like about it. Like I said, the Outrunners are quickly becoming probably one of my favorite tag teams.
Just about to say the Outrunners.
I think they have, they're a nod to old school tag team. They have that little bit of, gimmickiness to them, but they can still compete at a very high level with all of the wrestlers that are in the ring today. And, I just like the direction they're going. I hope that they continue, to grow and to, get into their characters, which they do very, very well at. And as much as I was a hater of them early, the
Young Bucks.
Yes, because they've matured. They're looking at it from not just a how can this benefit me, because ultimately your ego does play a little bit into what you do, but it seems like they're more gearing now towards how can we make this AEW this better, and what can we do, as a tag team to make this company better, not just ourselves, but make, everybody around us better. Because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take everybody around them and everybody around MJF and Don Callis and all those guys to be better. And they are. I think they're doing a really good job at it. That pay-per-view that they had was phenomenal. The ending was great. And that's why I messaged you. You probably haven't seen it, but that's how you end a pay-per-view. And when you get to it, if you haven't seen the clips of it yet, you'll see what I'm talking about. They did a very good job, literally from the start of it, to the bottom, and it was paced right. And when I say that, it it started out like a little slow burn, then it got really hot, and then it would cool down a little bit, and then it would get real hot again, and then it would cool down again, and it would get real hot. And it took you on that roller coaster ride that wrestling should, when you're watching a pay-per-view, when you watch not only just a pay-per-view, but watching, a regular weekly program, it should take you through all of those emotions.
Now, Howard, what do you mean pay-per-views? I thought they were PLEs.
Yeah, well,
I just think the wording PLE, like the that aspect just is stupid. Sorry,
It still is. At the end of the day, you have to pay to view it.
Even if you're paying, even if it's on Peacock, you're still paying Peacock.
Right. You don't get Peacock for free. You're paying Peacock. So yes, you are paying to view it. So it's a pay-per-view. You want to watch it, you got to pay for it. And people say, well, I pay a monthly subscription. Okay, if you didn't have that monthly subscription, you wouldn't see WrestleMania, you wouldn't see SummerSlam, you wouldn't see this, you wouldn't see the blah, 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 blah. So you are, in a sense, you are paying to view it. Now, back in the day, it was, before pay-per-view, it was closed circuit. That's how far we've come. But I think
I don't remember closed circuit. I'll be honest with you.
Closed circuit was the precursor to pay-per-view. Before you could literally get it in your home, you could go to bars and things and watch fights and big events, big marquee events like that were closed circuit television. And I don't know exactly how it worked, but it kind of worked along the lines of pay-per-view. But I think AEW is making big strides in putting themselves in a position of where they need to be, to really have, I think, a breakout year in 2025. I mean, they certainly have the talent. I mean, they're not as bloated as WWE is, but excuse me, I think they have the right amount of talent to sustain themselves through 2025.
I don't know. I think they are a little bloated, too. But that's such a term that is, I'm torn a little bit. I kind of wish maybe there was an additional hour or two a week for them, especially now that Rampage is, they're not doing Rampage now. That wasn't part of the deal, to have some additional TV time. But at the same time, I still like the 2-hour aspect. Now, part of me wonders if ROH gets a TV deal, could that be where you could fill in a little time for some? Because I don't necessarily want ROH to be a quote-unquote developmental. You know what I mean? That's why I say I'm torn on that one.
No, I really wish, Ring of Honor would get its own, even if it's an hour and a half. It's got to be at least an hour and a half of television. I think an hour is too short.
You know what, though? I used to love the old ECW show back on Channel 48 that was only an hour. It felt like it was fun. It was, it wasn't too little, I felt like.
It wasn't too
Maybe
little.
a little different today, but back then it wasn't.
No. But I think we've been so conditioned now that, because most of the sports that we watch are 2 hours long, football, basketball, baseball, 2 hours, right. So to watch wrestling for 2 hours, I think is especially with the commercials, I think it's the right amount of time, and I think you can tell really good stories and you can, get what you need to get in 2 hours. And that doesn't mean everybody's got to be, on the show, every week. WWE wasn't that way, when they first started. You would see, of course they had their big guys, but there were other guys that you would see maybe every other week. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And I think with that, they could tell more stories over the month or so, 2 months, 3 months, if they, and it sounds like a bad thing, but if they limited their wrestlers, on camera time, because I think sometimes less is more, because even with the NWA, when Ric Flair was champion, you just see Ric Flair every week. He might come out and do an interview. You might see him for 2 or 3 minutes. And that was it. In a 2-hour show, that'd be all you get. So you made sure that you watch it so you could catch, his promo, whatever he was going to say, whatever he was going to promote, Dusty Rhodes wouldn't necessarily always be out there, every time the camera was on. And I think that, AEW does a decent job at that. And I know people dump on them a lot because, they're looked at like the redheaded stepchild and, a second-class citizen. But they are, if you could eliminate all of the WWE nonsense that you've seen and just strictly watch AEW for its wrestling, I think its wrestling is far better than WWE is. The wrestlers themselves, I think, as the old saying goes, pound for pound are better than what WWE has.
Oh, without a doubt, to me, like the wrestling itself, AEW is superior.
Yes.
I think that, the wrestling itself, AEW is superior, but that's okay. Because AEW is a quote-unquote wrestling company, whereas WWE is a quote-unquote sports entertainment company. So from that aspect, that's fine. Do I think WWE tends to be, I'm not going to say always, but do they tend to have a little bit better, at least better grasp on the storytelling part? I think so. And again, that comes down to because they're a little more of that quote-unquote entertainment aspect.
Right. And they will always be the bigger draw because you're going to want to go, especially if you have young children that watch it, you're going to want to go where your children want to go. And they're if they want to go see a WWE show, yes, you're going to take them because you're a wrestling fan, right? So if you can get your wrestling in and take your son or daughter, nephew, niece, whatever with you, that unfortunately, for AEW, that's where you're headed. Where AEW is geared a little bit more towards, a little bit of an older generation. I'll say, people in their 30s or 40s, and
I would say really anywhere from teenager on up is feel WWE or a little more AEW.
AEW, and I do like, their storytelling has gotten much better.
Again, I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying either company's perfect.
No,
WWE puts on some really good wrestling. I'm not saying they don't. And AEW has some good stories. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying that for both, there's work to be done that could help improve and make each even stronger and better. And that's fine.
Right. No, and I get it. And I just my wish for AEW in 2025 is that the wrestling fan base, for however big it is, throughout the world, would really look at AEW really through, unfiltered eyes and say, I'm just going to watch this. I'm not going to compare it to anything else.
Exactly.
And then just watch it at its entertainment value.
And that takes me back to my original point that I made 15 or so minutes ago. The IWC. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, and for those who are new tuning in and might go, what the heck is IWC? I mean, the internet wrestling community. They are toxic, period. Yes. End of story. It is so toxic. Honestly, as crazy as this is to say, I think the IWC, the internet wrestling community, is more toxic than the political internet community.
Oh,
and it might even be more toxic than the Star Wars internet community. And damn, that is toxic.
That's pretty toxic.
Yeah. So, if you do what I did, which is, basically get rid of Twitter, all of a sudden, life, it feels like 100, pounds would come off your shoulder. I'm not even one who would go in and jump in and defend and feel the need to do any of that stuff. But I would scratch my head going, what are these people talking about with their complaints and stuff? And it would just be, you could tell who the WWE stands were. You could tell who the AEW stands were. And it was like, guys, why can't, and the WWE stands were always even worse and more toxic than the, and the AEW, make no mistake, the AEW stands were pretty horrific. And they look like, pussycats compared to the WWE stands.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, put it down, put down your rifles, I'm using that in the figurative sense, I guess maybe for some of them in the literal sense needs to happen too. But that's a discussion we can have in a future day.
Yeah, and
specifically January 20th, or 21st, or whenever that Thursday ends up being. That might be a conversation we need to have. Have our escape hatch if we need to to do it.
And just watch the program for what it is. It's
exactly
just for 2 hours, right? And have fun with it.
Fun,
and laugh at the guys that are supposed to be goofy, and take a little bit more serious look at the guys that are serious, because you are if you're trying to compare it, you're really missing out on really how good these guys are. The MJFs.
I'll even go this way. I'm even going to put it this way, and you can go back and listen to previous episodes of In the Room and WCW Retro for this. I have my frustrations with Nia Jax. I have my complaints with Nia Jax. Even Nia Jax is friggin' incredibly talented. I'm not stupid. No, I know that she, even though I bang my head against the wall because I think she needs to be a little safer and to be work on getting a little bit more development out of her character. I even know Nia Jax is incredibly talented. She is an incredibly talented lady. And, you go back 15, 20, 30 years, Nia Jax, someone of her talent probably wouldn't have even gotten the chance to ply her craft. So, it's just frustrating to me because there's so much talent and just go enjoy these young men and women who are, and I say young and all, when you got a Chris Jericho or a John Cena who are 40s and 50s, but my point is, when you have these guys who are looking, they're trying to entertain you, and why is that a bad thing? Go enjoy it for what it is, which is meant to, make your excuse me, got a hiccup all of a sudden. They're meant to give you a little smile, put a smile on your face, entertain you.
That's all they're there. They're risking their bodies. They're applying their craft. They're doing literally what they love for our entertainment. And that's how they have to take it. They have to take it at, they're entertaining me for 2 hours, and, just, kind of leave it at that. Just watch it for its entertainment value and forget, everything that and again, if you're an AEW fan, do the same thing. If you watch WWE, just take it, for its entertainment.
And that's what I do. That's why I say I like all of it. I am for the wrestler. Someone who's I was in the business a little bit with the independents, and I'm not saying I was a wrestler. I'm not saying I had any talent. Trust me, I'm pretty sure Rat Boy could wrestle me under the table. And that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not trying to go, ha, Slim Burgundy. Yeah, I'm going to puff my ego. It's not that at all. What I'm saying is I want to see every wrestler, from the lowest of the lowest independent, the fresh out of a training, heck, even in the training school, be successful. I want to see everybody be really successful. All the companies, regardless if you're an independent or if you're on a televised company or if you're a global juggernaut like WWE or AEW. And yes, I hate to tell you this, people, but AEW is also a global juggernaut.
Yeah, yes.
I know some of the WWE stands are probably hearing this, whether it's live or whether they're listening to it, on the podcast format. And they're probably, shitting their cages right now at me saying that. But, enjoy it, have fun. Why does it need to be a competition? Why does it need to be we got to shit on the other guys? You know, and I'm going to put this in a way that I know there are a lot of people who will get, regardless if you're religious or not religious. But, Jesus says, when someone was complaining about somebody else, and he basically said, I'm going to paraphrase because I don't remember the exact Bible verse, but he says along the lines of, who are you to criticize somebody else? I think he said something along the lines of you're criticizing the sty in someone else's eye when you have a big, log in your own eye or something.
It's you're criticizing a guy with a splinter in your eye, and you have a big plank hanging out of your eye.
Yeah, I mean,
basically what it is.
Exactly. In other words, again, even if you're not religious or whatever, my point is, who are we, to criticize others as if our own shit don't stink?
Right.
I know my shit stinks. I 100%. I come on here and I give you my opinions, and I know my opinions. They suck. They do. Because guess what? They're opinions.
Right.
All opinions suck, regardless. Right. That's why they're called opinions.
Right. And in somebody's mind, everybody's opinion is wrong, which is great about having an opinion. That's how we start a discussion. Listen, I have an opinion, you have an opinion. And, we discuss it. And just because I think you're wrong doesn't make you wrong. It's just we don't have the same opinion about it.
And the ultimate goal to me is to give you my point of view, hear your point of view, and see if we can find some common ground.
Right. And I think if we would just kind of relax a little bit and stop being so judgmental about, and this, I mean, we do it every Thursday and on Tuesdays, but just watch WWE for what it is, watch AEW for what it is, and hope that they both,
watch
plus
MLW
all of the others,
and TNA,
right? MLW, yes,
and independent promotions and all that.
Because because at the end of the day, when they all succeed, we as fans win. They make money,
and that's why I say I'm for the wrestler, because I want to see all the wrestlers make lots of money.
Yes, because
they make lots of money,
that benefits us.
The way they make money is us enjoying the product,
right? And going to the shows and watching it on TV and
buying their merch
all their stuff,
and all that kind of stuff. Exactly.
All of that stuff. And again, we benefit from all that. So I would want because let's just, in a bizarro world, let's just say that WWE runs all of the other companies out of business, like they tried to do and almost succeeded. Where are all those other wrestlers going to go? Where's MJF going to go? Let's just say that he doesn't sign with WWE. Where's Don Callis going to go? Where are the Young Bucks going to go? Where are the Outrunners going to go? Like, you're missing out on watching all of this great talent if you think one company should dominate the wrestling business. Because the roster's only so big, there's only so much time on television that people are going to pay to watch WWE. And there's only so many writers, and there's only so many ideas from that little group of writers. And we know that, it's WWE hasn't, it's changed a little bit under Triple H, but it hasn't changed much. So you're only going to get so much out of WWE. So we need something else, to watch and, another perspective on how a story should be told. Again, it doesn't mean that they're telling it wrong.
That is one thing that frustrates me with Paul, is he kind of has that same mindset of Vince, is that, when I hear him talking about the quote unquote pissant company, referring to AEW, and it's like, dude, that quote unquote pissant company is helping to drive the business, to bring in more revenue for your company.
Right.
And therefore bring more revenue for your family.
Right.
Bring in additional money for your family.
Right.
Because there's no doubt in my mind Triple H has stock options and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, without a doubt. And my thing is, you shouldn't run down another company. What you need to do is, if you and I work for either WWE or AEW and we're rivals, my job is to run just you down. If I'm the bad guy, or I'm going to run you down and bring up all of your things that I think are faulty about you. And you as a good guy are going to tell me just, how, evil I am, and blah, blah, blah. And that's where the tearing down should happen. It should happen within your company, because that's what I want to see.
And it should be within storylines. It shouldn't be like actually tearing something down.
Right.
You're not trying to literally destroy anybody's,
right,
reputation or and by the way, people, those of you go, well, we hear you shit on Rey Mysterio and call him a deadbeat dad, blah, blah, blah. We're joking.
Right. That's a joke.
We're having some fun with it. It's kayfabe style, tearing him down.
Right.
Rey Mysterio, from everything I've heard, is one of the nicest people you could ever meet in your entire life. From what I've heard, he is a phenomenal father.
I hope
to be your father.
I hope that if I ever meet him, or if me and you ever have a chance to meet him, I hope Kathy's not with us.
Or maybe we do want Kathy with us because maybe he won't beat the shit out of us. Kathy.
Right.
Again,
yes,
Mr. Mysterio Jr., sir.
Yes.
Just understand, sir. We're only kidding. I've got nothing but respect for you.
Yes,
I'd like to see you do a heel turn. I'm not going to lie. I would love to see a heel turn out of you.
I would love that.
I don't think that's going to happen because I don't think the writers, the leadership thinks you would be able to be good at it. Even though I thought you were really good at it when you were in WCW, when you were a heel in WCW at times. But again, that's neither here nor there. I just that would be my only complaint, and that's not about him personally. That's just about his character.
Right. No, I love Rey Mysterio. I love his work. He can't, and I don't mean to sound demeaning or like I'm putting him down, but you can't be that small of a guy and last this long in this business without being phenomenal at what you do.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. Doing something right.
Right. He's doing something right for 30, almost 40 years now. We got to understand he's been in it since he was a young teen.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably 35 years, maybe more longer.
And, and I've heard that, of all of the wrestlers out there, that he's one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet and is really wanting to impart, what he's learned to anybody that'll listen and anybody that will, want to sit there and listen to Ray or take his criticism or critiques of what you're doing and learn from it, and you can see it in, the upbringing with Dominic and how great Dominic has done, where you have Ray, who is, way over as a babyface. Dominic can't even open his mouth without the crowd booing him. So,
without a doubt. And that to me is indicative of the fact that he's taught his son right.
Absolutely.
As far as the wrestling business. And honestly, from what I've heard, Dominic's a really nice dude too.
Yes. But it comes from, his upbringing, and, can you imagine being a young Dominic Mysterio, because your dad's been in the business since you were a baby and growing up around, all of those guys, Conan, Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko and Chris Jericho, all those guys that he grew up around and has the ability to kind of tap into and ask, hey, Dean or Eddie, when Eddie was alive, what do you think about this? Or what if I do this? Or, even going with that dad, how far is too far? How far can we take this? And I'm sure when the whole Mysterio family was fighting, I'm sure Ray was telling him, take it as far as you can, and in fact, I just read I didn't read it. I saw a short video. I think it was at the WrestleMania where Dominic's sister had a red cup in her hand, and it wasn't scripted, but Dominic was like, I'm just going to throw the cup back at her. And it got all over. Now, that wasn't part of any script. That was off the script, but it worked. And I'm sure he learned that from his dad. Nobody else did, And yes, I poke fun at Ray, and I do it mostly because I know it gets under Kathy's skin, and I just love teasing Kathy.
This is what happens when you have deadbeat dads. I mean, I'm just saying.
Right. I can't help it that he hasn't paid child support in 20 years. It's not my fault.
It's not our fault that his son is 20, like 27, 28 years old, and therefore doesn't qualify for child support. If he was a good father, he would definitely pay him child support.
Right, and he should have bought his son all of the nice cars that he should have bought that he didn't. I get why Dominic's all upset. I get it. and Ray, if you're listening, man, I'm kidding, man. I'm kidding. Don't come knocking on my door.
I'm telling you, we're gonna get our asses whooped. I'm telling you, he's gonna be like, two of these motherfuckers who keep, telling me a deadbeat dad. Next thing you know, he's gonna be whooping our asses.
Yeah, all 5'4" of them. I can't. Yeah, that would be embarrassing. But no, I just saw today. I'm going to get your opinion, and it scared me a little bit. And I thought this can't be true, but I just saw that the Nature Boy said that he's got one more. Like, seriously?
All right. So you want my opinion on this? I'm going to give it to you in the most gentle way I can. The the fan in me goes, absolutely yes. The realist in me goes, please don't, please no. Just for his health alone, I want to see him. I worry that if he does, because he wants to relive those glory days, he's going to do too much, and then God forbid, I could see a heart attack or something, something legit like that happening during the match, and that scares me to death. So
I was just going to say,
fan in me, yes, wants to see it. The realist in me is like, please no, don't tarnish. Even if all his health was perfectly okay, you're still going to completely tarnish your legacy. Not tarnish. I hate when people say that kind of stuff. No, it's not tarnish your legacy. I just think people are going to ultimately, it's not going to be memorable. People are going to go, eh. Like, you think that anybody's going to say that Mike Tyson, quote unquote, tarnished his legacy by fighting Jake Paul?
No.
No, he didn't. But within the next 2 or 3 years, are people going to remember that happening? Probably not.
No.
They're probably just going to tune it out. They're going to put it out of their minds.
Yes.
Now, Netflix made that easy with how much buffering and shit was happening, but that's
right
for a different day.
The 15, 16, 17-year-old kid in me is like, yeah, I would love to see, the Nature Boy go out there one more time.
I've been saying forever, I want to see Shawn Michaels, another, match. And then the tag match happened, and it was like, I don't think it was as bad as people were making it out to be.
No.
But it wasn't a good match. It was okay.
It was okay. It didn't live up to its hype, and that's where the realist in me is like.
But I also don't think it was because of Shawn. I don't think it was his fault at all.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So from that aspect, but I've been like, man, I want to see one more WrestleMania match. I want one more WrestleMania match. And I still do. I absolutely would be like, the kid in me is like, yes, please, come on, just in case anybody who can please relay this message to Mr. Hickenbottom. Mr. Hickenbottom, sir, you are the greatest, at least in my mind, you are the greatest to ever do this. Please, please, please give us one more. We got Stone Cold. We got a chance to see Mr. Austin, Mr. What's his actual last name? Williams, right?
Williams.
Yeah, we got a chance to see Mr. Williams. Please, Mr. Hickenbottom, I want to get a chance to see you do it again as well on the biggest stage.
And back to, your Ric Flair comment, I don't think he'll be happy unless he, like you were saying, literally dies in the ring. Like, I think that's his ultimate way of going out.
And that's what scares me too. Now, I will say this. I would be okay from the standpoint of if he wanted to manage, say, Charlotte, and do something where he manages and maybe takes a minor small bump, but he has a good part of, is an integral part of the storyline / match.
Right.
That would be okay. I would be all for that because I think that'd be a little safer. I wouldn't feel as stressed about, because I'm going to be more stressed than anything about him being okay during the match. I won't be able to enjoy the match because I'm going to be like, oh my God, what if he breaks a hip? What if he injures his back? God forbid he dies in the ring. Like, that's what I'm going to be thinking. So I wouldn't be able to enjoy the match because I'd be, so stressed about him being okay.
Right. Yeah. And that's my fear is like, if he does it, is he going to be okay, in the end, because you don't ever want anybody to get hurt. But, as you get older, the probability of you getting hurt, increases, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times every time, you step through them ropes again, and I wish he could just, I don't want to say, fade off into the sunset, but like you said, maybe take a managerial role, or, a, technical advisor, if you want to call him that, whatever you want. And then, occasionally take a bump or something. I would love to see him go upside down into the turnbuckles one more time, but a full match, I just don't know, the guy in me now, me being 54 is like, nah, Rick, come on, man. I got a lot of good memories, man. Let's just leave it where it's at. But yeah, the kid in me is like, yeah.
He had a heart attack or something, didn't he? Like, what was the health issue he had a few years ago?
Yeah, no, he had a heart attack, and they said that he had, in his last match that he had, that, he had some breathing issues that he doesn't remember a lot of it.
Exactly. Like that.
That's
I don't
scary
wanna
to me.
That's very scary. And just I don't want to see him. And the problem is when you're the greatest to do it for as long as, he did it, or at least one of the greatest, I think it's safe to say it probably, mentally, like at a certain point, like to me, my thought very much is that if I can't walk, if I can't get around and all and walk and all on my own and all, then I don't think I want to continue on in this world. And,
Right.
so I have a feeling he kind of had, for him, it's if I can't go into the ring and have a match, why I don't want to be in this world. And that's a scary thought too.
Right.
So I think part of it is to show for himself, to prove to himself just as much as to others.
Right.
And
So-
it's like, it's not worth your life, Rick, Mr.
No,
Flair.
it's
It's not
it's
worth
not.
your life, buddy.
So you grew up with, the Shawn Michaels, and I'm not taking anything away from Shawn Michaels. I think he's a great performer, in the what I'll call the modern era.
I think
best
if
that
you're gonna say Ric Flair him, I'm sorry, but Michaels to me is better than Flair. But that's a different story for the
right, and they're 20 years apart, but your Mount Rushmore. Give me your 4, actually 3 now, because I'm sure you're going to put Shawn Michaels up there. Your other 3 Mount Rushmores of wrestling.
Shawn, Steve Austin, Randy Savage. Man, who else would I put up there? I'm torn between Dwayne and Mick.
Okay.
Just because I have such respect for Foley, who I don't think, to me, is one of the most underrated to ever do it.
Oh, without a doubt.
I think, hell, who was it? Who was it? Even Flair who called him a glorified stuntman or something like that?
Yeah.
Wasn't that Flair who said that?
Yep. And Mick brought that up in his
angers
book.
me. Yeah, and that angers me to all extent because Foley's ability in the ring was really good. Like
Not
his
only that,
ability to make others look really good too was phenomenal.
Not only that, his promos were damn near at the top. Like, even whatever persona, Cactus Jack, Dude Love,
One of the greatest promos to me, one of the greatest of all time, was the street fight at MSG in '97 that really kicked off DX even to an extent, where he does the backstage thing where it's basically in the mind of Dude Love, and he's interviewing Mankind.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, doing an interview, and I love what he's like, up top, or down low, too slow, doing all that stuff. And he's like, and I love how they're both like, oh, bring him out, bring him out, daddy, and all that kind of stuff and all. And it's like, oh, Cactus Jack, he's back. Now, granted, to be fair, Paul absolutely sold it. His reaction to the ring was incredible.
Yes.
Sell how amazing that moment was. But that promo will always live in my mind as one of the absolute, just amazing promos.
One of the best ones that I've seen was Mankind, when I believe it was Jim Ross was doing the interview with him, trying to get into the mind of Mankind, and he just attacks Jim Ross at the end.
Yes.
I was like, watching that from a fan's eyes, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I think he killed JR. Like, I don't know that this guy's ever going to be the same again. And just that whole, like, I don't know, it's like a creepiness, little, like the whole interview, the way they both did it. Jim Ross is great at what he does. Mankind was great at what he did. That whole interview had an uneasiness, like you didn't know where it was going to go, but you knew something bad was probably going to happen. You didn't know from what angle it was going to come from. And then he puts the mandible claw on him. I'm like, oh my gosh, he just killed JR right in front of me. I just witnessed a murder here.
Oh yeah,
and it was great. And it was great, But yeah,
that's up there. That's up there with the woman promo from Ric Flair.
Yes.
Which part of it, to be fair, is also bad because of what ended up happening with Chris Benoit and Nancy. But
yeah,
woman, oh woman, won't you marry me now? Woo! Was after 14 years with the devil, woman wants woman wants a night alone with Benoit. Woo! And it's like, all right, it was great then. Now you're just like, yeah, maybe that wasn't for the best.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But to be fair, now here's another one of my things with that. Do I think it all was Benoit's fault? No. I think that's the fact that his brain was mush.
Without a doubt.
And, but I'm not excusing it. I'm not excusing what happened, but I also think you have to look at it from the lens of, the totality and not just a small, rose-colored lens or, you got to look at it from its whole totality. So, but anyway, we can have that discussion another time. I don't feel like having it on the first of 2025. We'll have that discussion, I'm sure, at some point. Especially when we can get Papa Stro on. I want to hear what his thoughts were of, Benoit and things like that at some point.
No, absolutely. And, and I I apologize. We were supposed to have a guest on tonight, but he had something come up at the last minute and he canceled.
Mike Tartaglia.
Mike Tartaglia, yes. But he has promised to be on the show next week, which I think is going to be
If you're not sure who Mike Tartaglia is, one of the TWA, someone who has worked in TWA, someone who was the owner at one point of ECWA. So he's got pretty strong roots to the Northeast wrestling community.
Yes, and like you said, we've been promoting on this show, for the last couple of weeks now, the One and Done show on May 3rd at the old ECW arena, the 2300 arena. If you haven't gotten your tickets, it might almost be too late, but you want to try to get your tickets and get them now because I have no doubt probably within the next month or so, this will be sold out and you will miss out on the One and Done. And it truly is. We got it straight from Joel Goodhart twice now. He was gracious enough to come on in the room. Then a few weeks later, he joined us here in WCW Retro. This is truly a one and done. He's wrapping everything up. And, he has promised, as every Joel Goodhart show that he's ever done for TWA, which is the precursor to ECW, if you want to trace its lineage back, he's promising everybody in attendance at one point in the show a front row seat, which is going to be fantastic. But you get your tickets at the 2300arena.com. It's real easy. I mean, I got 2 tickets. I am going. I believe Brady's taking In the Room there. Not sure if he's doing the WrestleCon or the show or both. I haven't really talked to him about it yet, but we have a little bit of time between now and then, but not much because it's going to be here before you know it. I mean, we're already in January, so we're roughly 5 months away, almost
5
to the
months
day.
From tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow. Yes, 5 months from tomorrow. We're probably I'm going to go out on a limb, probably one of, if not the biggest show to ever be at the 2300 Arena. And there's been a lot of great shows at the 2300 Arena. If you haven't been there, I haven't been there in probably 20 years. I've heard they've done a fantastic job remodeling it. It's not the old bingo hall that some other people would claim it was, but it's a really nice arena.
Now, I will say I've never been there at all in general, but from what I've heard, even back then, it wasn't a quote unquote bingo hall. That was just people trying to insult the fact that it was actually a pretty solid arena back then. Not to say it was the greatest in the world, but it wasn't.
No, but for its size, I mean, it's about 900 seats or so. It's under 1,000. It's a really nice. It was, and I'm sure it's even better now with all the upgrades that they've made to it. But it was a really nice. You felt literally when you went there like you were an integral part of the show, no matter what show you were watching as a wrestling fan there. It's a very intimate setting. And I'm sure it hasn't, from that aspect, hasn't changed, a bit. But this is a truly one and done. There was, I wish I don't have the card in front of me. I apologize. I was scrambling trying to line up another guest for tonight. But with that being said, we are potentially going to have 2 guests on next week, Ryan, if it all works out for us. Mike Tartaglia has, bumped to next Thursday, and I'm working on getting Glenn Osborne on as well for next Thursday's show on the 9th. He believes he can make it. He's checking his calendar, but as of right now, it's open. But again, if he takes a booking between now and then, never going to begrudge a guy to go make money in doing what he loves.
Do what you need to do. Sure.
Right. Absolutely. And listen, and we will improvise just like we did tonight and wait for him to have the availability, to come talk to us. And next week should be a more of an action-packed show with the guests that we have. Like I said, Mike Tartaglia is going to be there. Glenn Osborne, they can fill you in on all of the TWA, history, talk a little bit about their careers and, about the upcoming, one and done show in Philadelphia on May 3rd, 2025. And from what I understand, if you have a ticket to the show, there is an after party at one of the hotels, I guess, where they're all staying, that the ticket to the show gets you into the after party at the hotel. So if you want to do that, it'll be, a great time. I'm excited. I really can't wait. I want to go, I don't know if I'm going to make the WrestleCon or not, because it's just going to it'll be a long day. But if you're in anywhere near driving distance to the 2300 Arena on May 3rd, you want to get a ticket or two or however many you can get, and make that show, because it will be a great time. And we're going to try, in the coming months leading up to the show, have more of the wrestlers that are going to be on there. I've been in touch with a bunch of them. They're working on their dates, and understand, most independent wrestlers, Ryan, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but most of these men and women work a full-time job, let's say Monday through Friday or whatever they do during the week. And on top of that, work a full-time wrestling schedule, where they're performing even, 2-3 times a week. Which you're saying, well, that's only 3 days. Well, I dare anybody out there to keep up that schedule, work a full-time job, and then do 2 or 3 other things that take you away from your family for a night or two, traveling up and down the highways and getting to these shows, again, as we said at the beginning of the show, to entertain us.
I'm gonna go on top of that, Howard. There are some people who work more than one job.
Absolutely.
When I was doing it, I was working my full-time job, teaching job. I also had I was doing part-time stuff. So, I wasn't necessarily having a ton of bookings, but I was training and stuff too. So, I was, and I know plenty who were doing a hell of a lot more than me.
Right.
I was thinking like Mark Angel, I know had his full-time job plus, he had an additional part-time and was pretty heavily booked. So, and he had a train and all too. So make no mistake about it. It's a very hard schedule.
Yeah. And a very good friend of mine. I mean, I worked for years with the American Roughneck. We worked in the same building.
Really? You did?
Yeah. Yeah. Me and Darren. We go way back.
You and Buckets go way back.
Yeah. And, and I didn't know that, he was into wrestling when I worked with him. Darren's a great guy, would do anything for anybody.
I love him. He's such a good dude.
But he was literally working a full-time job, and sometimes it meant working like unannounced overtime, where he would walk in and they'd be like, well, you're working overtime today. And there was no saying no, you had to stay. It was just that kind of place. And he was training when he could, and he was taking bookings, and he was doing other things outside of all of that, and, you really appreciate these guys that are literally doing everything they can to not only make the booking, but to show up and after, whether either working all day or working all week and then traveling out on a Friday to make a Saturday show or even a Friday night show into Saturday, and then coming home on Sunday or whatever. They have dedicated their life to their profession. And a lot of these guys that if you go to the one and done show are really wrestling for the last time, in front of us. So it will definitely be a historical event. And Philadelphia has always been literally a hotbed of pro wrestling, not only on the bigger levels, but there's so many good independent wrestling organizations in this area that if you get a chance to go check them out, man, it's worth the $20 or $30 that you pay for the ticket to go see them. ECWA is probably one of the best, in the area. And, dollar for dollar, I've been to probably 4 or 5 ECWA shows. There's no better, and maybe it's a biased opinion of mine, but there's no better independent wrestling show than ECWA, dollar for dollar.
Yeah, they are a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm actually on the website right now. There's still some tickets left. Not a ton, but there are some tickets left. Make sure you grab them.
Yes.
I'd say there's probably a good solid, maybe 150 or so tickets left, 200 tickets left. And that, those are going to go fast. No ifs, ands, or buts in my mind. They're going to go eventually. They're going to be completely scooped up. So you do have a little time, but I wouldn't wait too long to do it.
And you definitely want to go, I think it's called change.org. If you go to the TWA One and Done Facebook page, I think they're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on a lot of social media platforms. You want to sign the petition for the banner. And again, Joel will tell you differently. But I believe of all of those, and forgive me because their names are escaping me right now. All of those names that they want to raise on the banner, Joel Goodhart's name needs to be on that banner in that arena. And they're roughly, I think I just checked earlier today, they're less than 200 signatures away from needing all the signatures that they need to get this banner done.
I know.
So
I signed it, so it's been signed by me.
Yes, I think I signed it last week or a week before. I can't remember.
I have to say too, keep in mind and all, like when we're saying one and done, part of it is too because TWA, was around for so long ago that a lot of these guys are, or I hate to say it like this because it makes me sound like such a jerk, but let's be honest, a lot of whether you want to look at it for careers or even life to an extent, a lot of these guys are a hell of a lot closer to the end than they are at the beginning.
Well, and I had the privilege of not only watching the franchise at the last ECWA show. Yes, the franchise Shane Douglas was in Morganville, New Jersey, in front of probably 400 people and put on one hell of a match. And, he was gracious enough to thank everybody, after his match. And he honestly said, guys like him, have more matches behind them than in front of them. So yes, they are getting towards the end of their career. They've literally put their bodies and lives on the line each and every night. And this is Shane Douglas, who's performed in front of tens of thousands of people. It's probably, if you total them all up, it's probably millions and millions of people that he's performed in front of and wrestled in front of. And then I got a chance to talk to him afterwards for probably about 20 minutes. Again, one of the nicest guys I've ever talked to. Gave me his undivided attention. We talked. I reached out to he's got a team of people that work for him that, take his bookings and schedule him.
So basically what you're saying is you're trying to get him on the show.
I'm trying to get him on the show. Yes. And it's not easy because he is the franchise and I understand that it just takes some time. Hoping to get him on.
A request for Tatanka,
Yes.
And we got to get Bobby Eaton on just for you,
Well, Bobby Eaton's not going to happen because he passed.
No. We got to get Bobby Eaton on if just for you.
I love Bobby Eaton.
We're going to do a seance if we need to.
And listen, if I could channel that would be fantastic. I love Bobby.
We'll do AI Bobby Eaton.
Yeah. And it's a shame because I got an appreciation for him more later in my life than I did because listen, he did his job. And I hated him growing up because of, being part of the Midnight Express and just being associated with Jim Cornette. And that, and my tag team back then, was the Rock and Roll Express. So, they were bitter rivals, but man, they put on a heck of a show. And the more you learn about these guys, and especially guys like Bobby Eaton, Ricky Morton, and it seems like every independent guy that we've had on and I've never met him. I've only talked to him through Facebook Messenger. Everybody gives major props to Glenn Osborne. So I'm very interested and excited to talk to him next week as well. Just to kind of pick his brain and see, why or what makes him tick and what makes guys like, Jimmy Giannetti, Joe Goodhart speaks of him. Mozart Fontaine talked highly about him. All these guys that I talk to speak highly of Glenn Osborne, and I just kind of want to get into his head just for a second and see, why guys, just like Mr. Ooh La La, everybody seems to want a piece of Glenn Osborne as they want a piece of Mr. Ooh La La.
Well, that's because Mr. Ooh La La is just incredible. Like, he is one of those few people who I will sing the praises of like it's nobody's business.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, without a doubt. But I know you got to go, and I think we're going to wrap it up a little early. But it's been a great show. Again, join us back here next week.
Hopefully we'll have a chance to to kind of go a little further into especially now that we're in the new year with the AEW, WWE, that kind of what to expect in 2025, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I do want to
conversation.
Right, and I do want to keep that kind of as a running theme to see kind of, again, I really don't want to make it sound like we're comparing the two, but kind of see, how they're growing, because I want both of them to grow.
I don't think we're comparing them at all. I just think it's growth for each one versus, year over year growth. Yeah. And I don't mean necessarily growth in audience or growth in like that kind of way. I mean growth, like, what do we think? Are they making the strides? Are they making the steps forward, that we want to see from them?
Right. So, join us here, next week. Don't forget to, join us on In the Room on Tuesdays. But Ryan, you have a show coming up tomorrow?
Tomorrow, yep. 7 p.m.
7 p.m. So you want to tune in for that. That's talking all sports. I mean, there was a lot of great college football on that I'm sure you'll be talking about. I'm going to
try to talk about the college football playoffs. I will tell people I'm not necessarily going to get political with the talk, but there's something big that happened yesterday that impacted sports that needs to be talked about, and we'll talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah. So you want to tune in? I'm going to try to jump on. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow.
Hopefully you can, because I don't. As of right now, it might be me flying solo. I'm waiting to hear if Joe's schedule will allow for tomorrow. But so if you have a chance to jump on, please do.
I definitely will. And listen, thank you for coming on. Thanks for talking with us.
No problem.
And we'll join you right back here next week. Everybody, continue to have a great new year, and we'll continue to make WCW Retro, your show and the listener-driven show, and we'll catch everybody next week.